Welcome everybody to a quick video about how we would be cutting our timber down so that we go from our cost list to our cut list and thus the parts for your project. I've got here some examples of material that myself and Mr. McKay cut down into the parts that somebody had asked us to make, and I've also got an example of where they would all kind of turn into. Excuse the mess, I am in my garage workshop shed basically, and there's lots of projects going on in my holidays. So without further ado, you've gone through the process of calculating out with your final drawing the material sizes that you want to make your project. Then you would have gotten your timber costing sheet and gone through what material you can actually buy and what stock we can get in, and depending on your choices of material, you will have worked out your cutting list, which is made up of all the parts you can make out of it, and so you may have tweaked your sizes slightly, and then you've got your costing list, which is actually the material that I would get to start with to cut into your cut list material ready for your project. So to explain, if we had, and this is the example we're going to use, Jarrah. Jarrah comes to us in a rough sawn length of a couple of meters. It depends on the individual pieces. They're kind of all jumbled up. But they're all about 200 millimeters in width and 38 millimeters in thickness. And so from that piece, we can machine up loads of other pieces, and it's up to you to calculate how that will fit together to use the most amount of material with the least amount of wastage and get what you need to be able to make your project. So a quick example, imagine these pieces have not been split up and cut into their parts. They're still a massive long piece of material. Okay, the first thing I do is I cut them down to their rough length, slightly a little bit extra just in case I need it. Insert video here. Hopefully that explained it. I've now got effectively a piece kind of like that. Okay, I've sliced along with probably a radial arm saw or a drop saw or something similar. And I've got my lengths here now that I need to start ripping down into the material sizes that you specified before I dress them down to their final sizes. So you remember with rough sawn timber, it's not smooth, it's rough, it's got those grooves in it. You know, I could bring this up to you and hopefully you'd be able to see the kind of striations that are come through this where it's been sawn, specifically, especially in these sides where we've got the rip saw coming through and it's given those big curved markings that obviously you don't want in your project. So we've got to turn them into, you guessed it, dress grade timber, dressed all round. And so what we do first is we cut it down into its constituent parts. So you should have calculated the material that this would be cut down into for being sawn, and then what it would turn into for it to actually be your final parts. So for example, if you had this piece here, right? I've now cut it like I did before to length. I'm now going to rip it down using a rip saw, insert picture of rip saw here, and a video of it being done here, or maybe an animation, we'll see. Hopefully that did it. Basically now you've got your constituent parts. So, you know, if I push this one out the way, I've got my individual leg pieces all cut up. These are all sawn. They will go through a thicknesser and be milled down to their final sizes that you would then use to make your project. But that's how we would have cut them down. Remembering that because we cut them with a big saw, as you saw in the animation, there are some thicknesses missing, and that's called wastage. We're trying to reduce the wastage, both in the thicknesses and the leftover piece that we can't use, right? So we're always trying to minimize that. So you have to think a little bit about how you can fit these all in. Another example of how we might cut all those materials down is in this piece, okay? So in the same way that I cut all the legs out, I would have ripped down ripped down the width of this board into 3 separate pieces now, but I want rails, and so I would have split this again side by side like that. I would have ripped it one more time after I turned it sideways. And so these rails now need obviously a lot of finishing because they're quite rough, and so they would go down even thinner again with our thicknesser, with our planer, so that we have dressed all round timber for you. So again, you have to remember to add in that extra couple of millimeters on each side after this is sawn down. If I split these perfectly, which I did pretty much with these, you know, then that might be an even number, but it might be slightly off, so add in some allowances. Okay, this is where it comes down to you being very clever with how you have designed your product and how you have maybe modified your product slightly in its sizes as you've gone through that process with the timber cutting and costing sheet. So just a quick example there of how we would have machined up our timber so that you can use it in your project. I hope that helped. Hope you like my animations. I tell you what, like, I thought that would be a quick job, and it must have taken me like, oh man, it must have taken me like hours and hours and hours, 4 hours, 5 hours maybe, just to get those little videos. I'm sure you could have done it faster, some of you, but I was trying to be cool. I couldn't do it faster than that. I gave it a good go. I did get it to work though, so I was pretty happy. Right, over to you kids. You got to get it done now.